An awesome thing has happened. I've realised that every time I try to teach something about this and somebody listens to what I've said, it leaves space in my mind for new clarity. And that clarity is, the intention is towards simplicity of explanation, a 4-year journey. So the only units that are fundamental, the constants of nature, are h, little h, which is Planck's constant. Now, it's not a constant value, but it constantly exists because it defines the diameter of the binding energy of hydrogen. Capital H, it forms the structure, the scaffolding of the sphere of binding energy. The big H, little h, defines the diameter. And the circumference of the diameter of the binding energy of hydrogen is a velocity, because it's a critical velocity, a critical viscosity is created at the circumference. You've got laminar flow and turbulent flow against each other. Turbulent flow is the higher energy state, but that higher energy state is created by the laminar flow, which is the actual power of the system. And so you end up with, as soon as you go turbulent, the higher energy state, that higher energy state doesn't have the energy to power itself, so it collapses. And so it's this, but it never collapses. So it's trying to go one way. From laminar, it goes turbulent, tries to go turbulent, can't go turbulent, goes back to laminar. Laminar can't go laminar because there is a higher energy state existing. It just recursively exists in a critical viscosity, a wave around the diameter of the hydrogen molecule with its binding energy. And that has a velocity, and that's c. It's measured by the speed of light, which is just a measurement. It's very useful, but it's irrelevant. It's nothing to do with speed, or nothing to do with speed. It's about vector. You've got to go below speed. I'm lying. It is to do with speed. Speed is about it's a velocity that doesn't have a vector. So what it does have is vector potential. 1906. Victor Levy. Now, so we got little h and little c, the diameter and the circumference of the binding energy of a hydrogen molecule, creating water. The base of the hydrogen particle is fluid dynamics. The upper hemisphere, the cavitation, is Gaussian vapor maths. You have the surface of the cavitation, the curvature of space-time. Einstein's useful there. And then you have the whole sphere and the mechanisms of force flow between the two, and then that's Maxwell. You just add the natural kinetic tensor and the pi tensor of pi real, 22/7, pi natural, 3.144, the golden ratio pi, derived from square root of 5. And then you have pi elastic, Archimedean pi, the pi that you're all familiar with, the irrational number that goes on forever because it's elastic. It's elastic pi, and it's not very helpful for us. We need to use one of the other pi's based on the perspective. It's a hemisphere. So now you've got the whole model of the time particle that lies at the center of the planet. And it's the universal rotation around it. The magnetic center is rotating around that center at the center of the planet, creating this time particle sphere model, the twin vortex. And it's a twin vortex because the magnetic poles here at the center of the magnetic field, which doesn't have a mass, but it has compressive strength because of its elasticity, because of its motion, described by c, the velocity of the circumference of the time particle itself. So the time particle is minuscule. The center of the planet is the axis, and so it takes very little time at all for light, the dot of light, to go around the circumference. But that is an action that has taken place, and heat has been generated by the work that is done in the rotation, and that heat must do work. And what that does is it opens the valve, allows water from the outside of the cavitation into the cavitation zone. So fresh water enters all the time into the system as superheated steam, as a Carnot engine, and the planet expands. In that moment of expansion, the planet doesn't, the surface, the tectonic plates don't expand. They're far too massive, and they're moving viscously across the surface, orthogonally to the inertial force that's creating them. And so what rotates is the elastica, the boundary between tension and negative tension. So you take the shell of the planet, the tectonic plates, the mass, the viscosity of the thickness. in that thickness there's an elastica, and that's a line, Euler. That line inverts and keeps inverting, and so that the expansion that you measure of the universe is actually the rotation of the elastica, the line, from inside of hemisphere to out to inside of sphere to outside of sphere. Pi tensor comes into play, returns it back to where it belonged recursively. And so the planet snaps back in a counter snap action, at which point electricity is created from a spark which goes backwards across the moment, meeting the wave of elastic rotation coming the other way. The electric and the elastic meet each other in this moment of Planck's constant, and the planet snaps back to where it was. Counter snaps. In the moment of consciousness, the rigid body instant, the conscious mass moment is created, and we are aware of the moment because it's just gone backwards, and then the moment is created. So the awareness of the moment happens before the action that happens in the moment that's ahead of you. That's the motion of time. When you just take little h and little c as your constants. So the future has begun. Gravity is the planet expanding, bouncing, and it bounces you off the surface. Every beat of Planck's constant duration, real seconds realized from the potential Newton meter second squared created from the motion of the moment, the bending, the rotation of the sea, the light itself moving. Gravity bounces you off the surface. So if you're not on the surface, if you're within the cavitation zone, your bending center is the center of the planet, so you're attracted there, that's where you're going. But you hit a surface which is viscous, and that surface is bouncing, and so you feel an effect of gravity. And gravity is an acceleration of the elastica from 0 to 9.81 meters per second squared, as we see it now, a kilogram meters per second squared. So the Newton is in there. You then take the Newton, and that's the Newton from h from the Newton meter second squared, and all the units derived. The limits are entropy, capital S, meter 4, the centroid of bending at the center of the planet. Welcome to the future. Now, all of you, listen to me. That atlas is coming this way. It's an iridium sphere shining with a bright white light. It's going to be the morning star in the east. It's going to smash into us. And it's going to speed the planet up because we're going too slowly. A new epoch begins. Magnetic pulse which will run through, and a new epoch begins. Now, we've got a choice, motherfuckers. Wake up. God is love. If your God is not love, then you're not worshipping God, you're worshipping Satan. God is love. And reference Love 1892, it all begins there, and there's mathematical treatise on the theories of elasticity. Reference Dr. Leve, and you are home. We will put that fucking thing into orbit. Atlas. It's called Atlas because it's going to support the Earth. The moon we have is a corrupt entity. We're going to get a new one. Every single human being must listen to this information, must worship Christ on their knees, and must set this planet sweet so that it comes into orbit. Yeah, get ready. December, I believe. Yeah, this is the year. This is the timing. Yeah, it's coming this way, friends. It's coming this way. Follow the Rebel King.